Don't fight him, John Boy.
Don't let my being bigger than you stop you, panty waist. I won't.
To millions of people in the 1970s, he wasn't just an actor on TV. He was family. He was the thoughtful, aspiring writer from a small Virginia mountain town, the steady moral center of a show that basically defined an era. He was John Boy, Walton. Just saying the name brings it all back. The warm glow of the TV set, that iconic house, and the chorus of voices saying goodnight to one another across the darkened rooms. Richard Thomas, the man who brought John Boy to life, became one of the most recognizable and beloved figures in American culture. The Waltons wasn't just a hit, it was a phenomenon, a touchstone for a generation that was craving a little decency and connection. So when Richard Thomas just walked away in 1977, at the absolute height of the show's popularity, the world was stunned. There was no public feud, no dramatic scandal, no explosive tell-all interview. Just a quiet, professional exit that left a gaping hole in the heart of the series. For decades, that silence only made the mystery bigger. Why would anyone walk away from a role that brought them fame, awards, and the adoration of a nation? The rumors were simple. He wanted more money, he was tired of the grind, he was chasing a movie career, but those were just whispers, and they weren't the full story. The truth, as it often is, was way more complicated. For over 40 years, the story of why Richard Thomas left. The Waltons has been told the same way. He wanted more money, or he was just tired of the role. But that's not the real story. His departure wasn't some snap decision. It was the final move in a secret 5-year plan he cooked up the day he was hired. This is the story of how John Boy refused to be typecast, not out of anger, but with a calculated plan to save his career before it was too late. It's a story about the crushing pressure of being an icon, the personal cost of fame, and the courageous and at times painful journey an artist has to take to get his own identity back. Once you hear his side of it, you'll never look at John Boy the same way again. To really get the size of Richard Thomas's decision, you have to remember the world that the Waltons created. In the early 70s, American TV was a landscape of gritty cop shows and cynical comedies. Then, in 1971, a TV movie called The Homecoming: A Christmas Story aired on CBS. Based on the writings of Earl Hamner Jr., it told the story of a rural Virginia family during the Great Depression, waiting for their father to get home on Christmas Eve. The film was a quiet hit, striking a chord with its picture of family, resilience, and simple human decency. The network knew they had something special and ordered a full series. While a lot of the adult roles were recast, the heart of the movie, the kids, and most importantly the sensitive, observant eldest son, John Boy, played by a 21-year-old, Richard Thomas, remained. When The Waltons premiered as a series in 1972, it was unlike anything else on TV. It wasn't loud or flashy, and it definitely wasn't cynical. It was a gentle, deeply human drama about 3 generations of a family living together on Walton's Mountain. It was about love, struggle, faith, and the small, everyday moments that make a life. The show's creator, Earl Hamner Jr., was the narrator, his warm voice bookending each episode, and at the center of it all was John Boy, the character based on Hamner himself. He was our guide, the show's conscience. He wasn't the typical hero of the time. He wasn't a tough cop or a brawny hero. He was an artist, a thinker. He was sensitive, sometimes too sensitive, and his conflicts were often internal. Richard Thomas brought a stunning depth to the role. He played John Boy with a quiet intensity, capturing that internal struggle of a young man who loved his family and home, but felt an undeniable pull toward a bigger world. He was, as Thomas himself described it, a spy in his own home, an observer who saw the world differently. This resonated deeply with audiences. They didn't just watch John Boy, they identified with him They rooted for him. The show became a ratings powerhouse, a true piece of the cultural zeitgeist. The cast became a real family on and off screen. Thomas has talked about the deep affection they all shared, a bond that's lasted for decades. The nightly good nights became a national catchphrase, a ritual of comfort for millions. And Richard Thomas was no longer just an actor. He was an icon. He won an Emmy in 1973 and got multiple Golden Globe nominations. He was on magazine covers, a household name, forever, linked with John Boy Walton. From the outside, it looked perfect. A starring role on a beloved show, money, and public adoration. Which is exactly why, behind the scenes, a quiet crisis was brewing. The very role that made him a star was slowly becoming a cage, and he knew, with incredible foresight, that he had to figure out how to escape. Fame is a double-edged sword for an actor. On one side, you get recognition and opportunity. On the other, you get the shadow of that one role that defines you, the character that the public, and worse, the industry, can never separate you from. This is the ghost of typecasting, and, for Richard Thomas, the shadow of John Boy Walton was threatening to block out the sun. To the world, being John Boy was a dream, but for a young, ambitious actor with deep roots in the theater, it was becoming a beautiful prison. Richard Thomas wasn't some newcomer who got his big break on the Waltons. His parents were dancers with the New York City Ballet, and he grew up on the stage. He made his Broadway debut at just 7 years old in 1958's Sunrise at Campobello. Before he ever set foot on Walton's Mountain, he'd already built a solid resume. He was a trained, serious actor who loved the craft of transformation. In fact, he was hesitant to even do a series since he was enjoying a movie career and didn't want to be tied down. But the scripts for the Waltons were just too good to refuse. He took the role, and the world embraced him for it. Maybe a little. Too much. John Boy was so moral, so earnest, so fundamentally good, that people started to merge the actor and the character. They expected him to be John Boy. He talked about the pressure of it, saying, "I felt like I was under constant scrutiny, even when I wasn't working. People expected me to act like John Boy, modest, polite, always on point, but I wasn't him." He felt like a drone bee in a beehive, constantly hearing John Boy do this and John Boy do that, with no time to himself. And that pressure from the outside was matched by his own artistic struggle on the inside. He was grateful to practice his craft on TV, but he felt his real education came from the theater. A TV series, with its repetition and long-term commitment to one character, can be creatively suffocating. Thomas knew that if he stayed on the show indefinitely, it would be for the wrong reasons: comfort and a steady paycheck, not creative challenges. The role that had been his launching pad was now becoming a barrier. He saw the trap early. He admitted that trying to completely shed the John Boy image would be a fool's errand. But the real danger wasn't the fans. It was the industry. He said, "It's not my fans I really worry about. It's the people in the industry. They're the ones I have to convince I'm no longer John Boy." Casting directors and producers are often risk-averse. They see an actor beloved as one character and can't imagine them as anyone else. Thomas feared that the longer he stayed on Walton's Mountain, the smaller his world of opportunities would get. He was an artist who wanted to paint with a full palette of colors, not just the gentle hues of John Boy. And so, with a clarity that's stunning for a man in his early 20s, he made a plan. It was a secret, a quiet pact he made with himself from the very beginning, an exit strategy designed to save his future. For decades, the story of Richard Thomas's departure was all just speculation. But the truth wasn't a snap decision or a heated argument. It was the result of a deliberate, calculated, and secret 5-year plan. From the moment he signed his contract for the Waltons, Richard Thomas knew exactly when he was leaving. In a revealing interview around the time of his exit, he laid it all out. "When I signed my contract," he stated, I decided then that I would remain with the series no longer than 5 years. And this wasn't some excuse he cooked up years later. It was a premeditated career move from day one. Think about the discipline that took. Here's a 21-year-old actor being handed the role of a lifetime, the temptation to ride that wave for as long as possible to lock down a comfortable future must have been huge. Most actors would have signed on for 7, 10, maybe more years. But Thomas was playing the long game. He wasn't just thinking about the next year, he was thinking about the next 40. He understood a fundamental truth about Hollywood. Today's icon can easily become tomorrow's typecast trivia question. His logic was simple. That's long enough to be tied up with one project, he explained, and I want to go on to other things. 5 years was the perfect balance. It was long enough to build the character, contribute to the show, and see John Boy grow up. But it was also a hard stop, a self-imposed deadline that would force him out of the nest before he got too comfortable, before the lines between him and the character blurred forever in the minds of casting directors. He basically put an expiration date on John Boy to ensure the long-term survival of Richard Thomas. This plan was a closely guarded secret. He didn't tell the producers, the network, or even his castmates, who were like his second family. He probably knew they'd try to talk him out of it. The pressure to keep the show's star would have been enormous, so he kept it to himself, quietly doing his job. For 5 seasons, all while knowing the clock was ticking, by the 5th season, the show's own story gave him the perfect out. John Boy had grown up. He'd published his first book and was moving to New York to chase his writing dreams. The character's natural journey lined up perfectly with the actor's personal timetable. It was a logical ending for the character, which made it a plausible, if heartbreaking, moment for the series. Thomas later joked, "I'd done all the writing. I could up in my room. Could he be 45 years old and up there writing in his diaries? I don't think so. So it was time to go, right?" This completely reframes his departure. It wasn't betrayal. It wasn't ingratitude. It was an act of profound self-preservation by a strategic artist who knew exactly how his industry worked. He wasn't running away from something. He was running towards a future where he was free to be more than just John Boy Walton. As he told the Chicago Tribune, you have to balance something like that by doing other things, and it can take years and years to wipe away an image. He knew it would be a long game, and leaving after 5 years was his opening move. Making a plan is one thing. Sticking to it is another. For Richard Thomas, leaving. The Waltons wasn't just business, it was gut-wrenching. He said the decision was made by an objective part of his brain, but living through it was anything but easy. "I hated going. I hated saying goodbye to everybody," he shared with his former co-star, Judy Norton. "It felt like something I had to do that would have been so much easier and more profitable and so much more comfortable to stay." Leaving was, in his words, emotionally very hard and painful. His final episode, where John Boy leaves for New York, was brutal for the entire cast. The tears you see on screen were very real. This was a family that had grown up together. The departure was so traumatic that Thomas said he fell seriously ill for weeks right after filming his last scene. He directly chalked it up to the emotional stress of leaving the role and the people he loved. His body was basically reacting to the grief of the separation. He also carried the weight of how he left. He kept his plan so secret that he didn't even tell his on-screen mother, Michael learned, with whom he was very close. She reportedly heard the news from producers, not from him. While she never spoke about it with bitterness, the silence was clearly hurtful. In later years, Thomas seemed to carry a certain heaviness about that part, not regret for leaving, but maybe for how he handled the personal goodbyes. Professionally, what came next was a harsh confirmation of his worst fears. Life after. The Waltons wasn't a cakewalk. He found himself in a total freefall. He described the sudden shift. There I was, working 5 days a week, 9 months a year, with the same people. Suddenly, it was all gone. He was back to the actor's hustle, reading scripts, fighting for roles, and facing a wall of uncertainty. And the ghost of John Boy was everywhere. His fear of typecasting became a reality. Casting directors just couldn't see past the wholesome kid from Virginia. He admitted that offers were pulled because directors said the audience would only see John Boy, pretending. It was a frustrating trap. Some people wanted to hire him because he was John Boy, while others refused to hire him for the very same reason. Meanwhile, the show he left behind struggled. The producers decided to keep the character of John Boy alive, recasting the role, with actor Robert Whiteman in season 8, but for many viewers it was never the same. Whiteman was a fine actor, but Thomas's performance was just too definitive. Viewership dipped. Many agree the series lost its heart and soul after he left. The magic had faded. While that was tough for the show, it was the ultimate proof of how central Richard Thomas had been to its success. He had made the right call for his career, but in doing so, he had proven himself to be irreplaceable. The years right after he left the Waltons were a test. He faced the exact typecasting he dreaded, a period where the industry just couldn't see him as anyone else. But Richard Thomas was playing the long game. He knew that the only things that could beat the image were time and hard work. His 5-year plan wasn't just about leaving. It was about what he did next, and what he did was return to his first love, the theater. On stage, typecasting doesn't have the same power. It's a place where talent and transformation matter more than your last TV credit. He began to build an incredible stage career. He tackled Shakespeare, playing Hamlet, Richard II, and Richard III. He starred in modern dramas and earned a Tony Award nomination for the 2017 Broadway revival of The Little Foxes. He worked everywhere from London's West End to theaters all across America, constantly challenging himself and reminding the world of the range he had. The theater, he said, was capable of rebuilding an artist from the ground up. Slowly but surely, his screen work started to diversify too. He made a huge impression as the adult Bill Denbrough in the 1990 miniseries of Stephen King's It, about as far from Walton's Mountain as you can get. His persistence paid off with a series of roles that would redefine him for a whole new generation. He was the beleaguered FBI agent Frank Godd in the spy thriller The Americans. He played the manipulative Sanford Bensinger in Billions and Wendy Bird's troubled father, Nathan Davis, in the final season of Netflix's Ozark. These roles were the ultimate proof that his 5-year plan worked. He did it. He broke free. He showed everyone he was more than John Boy. He wasn't just a former TV star. He was a respected working actor with a career spanning over 6 decades, known for his incredible versatility. With that artistic freedom secured, he was finally able to make peace with the role that started it all. He never badmouthed the show. In fact, he always spoke of it with love. "I love that show and that portrayal," he said. "To some people, I'll always be that character. But why let it kill you?" He even joked that "Goodnight John Boy" will probably be on his tombstone. The real full-circle moment came in 2021, when the CW network rebooted the story with The Waltons' Homecoming. Richard Thomas returned. This time, he took on the role of the narrator, the older John Boy looking back on his life, the very part originally played by creator Earl Hamner Jr. It was a beautiful moment. The young actor who feared being trapped by a role had returned as a seasoned veteran, his entire career proving the wisdom of his early choice. He wasn't defined by John Boy anymore. He was now the guardian of his legacy, his voice guiding a new generation back to Walton's Mountain. He got to have it all, a legendary role that will be remembered forever, and the rich, diverse career of a true artist. If you love hearing the real stories behind your favorite shows, make sure you subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into TV history, and let us know in the comments. What actor's sudden departure from a show always made you wonder, wait, why did they do that? The story of why Richard Thomas left. The Waltons isn't just TV trivia. It's a masterclass in artistic integrity and having the guts to defy everyone's expectations. At the peak of his fame, when staying put would have been the easiest thing in the world, he made a choice that was tough, painful, and totally misunderstood. He didn't leave because of ego or greed. He left to protect his future as an artist. His secret 5-year plan wasn't a rejection of success, but a roadmap to a different kind of success. One measured in the range of his work, not just ratings. For 5 years, he battled the very image that made him a star, and he won. Through decades of dedicated work, he completely reshaped his own story. He proved that you can honor your past without being a prisoner to it. His journey from John Boy Walton to one of the most respected character actors working today is a testament to a long-term vision. He understood that a career is a marathon, not a sprint, and that sometimes the bravest move is to walk away from the finish line everyone else sees and chart your own course into the unknown. Richard Thomas will always be John Boy to millions, a fact he now embraces with grace. But his true legacy is that of an actor who took control of his own story, making sure The Boy from Walton's Mountain was just the first chapter in a long and brilliant book.